This is Dr. Joseph Baker from the Limerick Chiropractic Center, and this is our workshop on Ask the Doctor. Now, questions had been submitted. We've been listening to conversations in our environment and things that patients have been asking in the last couple of weeks on a routine basis have helped put together these questions tonight. Now, I will say one of the great delights that I have is that you come up with absolutely wonderful questions and ideas for future workshops. That's why we produce these workshops for you. In fact, my desire is in doing these workshops is that we answer questions that you have. So tonight, we're going to be walking through about 5 or 6 different questions that different patients have sort of given us, things that we've heard in our environment, and in turn we want to make sure that this information gets out to all of our patients and followers of the Limerick Chiropractic Center. Now, I do have to say, the one way we're capable of getting this information out to even more people is by making sure that you're liking these videos. And certainly, we want you to share this amongst your Facebook friends and family. Now, for me personally, one of the things I really desire is to hear your takeaways, your comments, the stuff that, well, maybe was a surprise for you, maybe you weren't aware of, or maybe even after hearing these questions being answered, you have follow-ups, things that intrigue you, things that you want to know about. I want you to leave me those questions in the comment section. Some of them we're going to be answering directly online. Others, we're going to be saving those for future conversations that we have on Facebook Live. So, the very first question that we had was, what's the best pillow to use when sleeping? Well, that's a really great question. And I would love to say that there is a one single answer for this. Not going to be the case. Because the last time I checked, each and every one of us happens to be a little bit different. So when we start talking about best pillows, best choices, one of the determining factors happens to be you. Not me, not anybody else around, not the rest of the family, not the spouse in bed beside you, not the children that crawl into bed or the dog that crawls into bed with you. Happens to be you. And in turn, each and every one of your spinal conditions happens to be slightly different. So one of the very first things that we have to do is test the system. Now listen, I don't care what this pillow is made of. I don't care whether the pillow is made out of foam or down or feather or, you know what, some synthetic material. I don't care whether they shove buckwheat inside this thing. It doesn't matter, all right? Water pillows, they're all the same. In the end, it's does it support your body and put you into the proper position? In fact, probably the better question to have been asked would have been, so what's the best pillow for me if I'm sleeping on my side? What's the best pillow for me if I'm sleeping on my back? And definitely there is no good pillow whatsoever if you find yourself sleeping on your stomach, because that's an absolute no-no. You should never, ever be sleeping on your stomach. Let me say that again. Never, ever. So if there's any question, never, ever is always going to answer to, is the stomach sleeping a good choice? The answer is absolutely no. So, on your side, a nice, solid, smooth top pillow is going to be the best. In fact, the biggest thing in regards to the height of the pillow, what fits you best, is the distance between the side of your head and the side of your shoulder. When you lay on your side, just like a chair rail, everything should be nice and level with that spine of yours. And hence the reason why oftentimes, whether it's a water pillow or any other type of pillow, we're always going to have you take a picture with you laying on your pillow. Extremely important, because that picture happens to be worth 1,000 words. Now, if it's impossible to tell or really hard to tell from the picture, one of the things that's always asked is, well, have you bring the pillow in order to have you muscle tested on it in order to determine if, in fact, it's the right height for you. So let me say that again. We're going to muscle test you on the pillow. So for many of you, that might be a foreign concept, being muscle tested. Well, let me tell you, if the body has any level of stress, and when we say stress, we mean stress within the nervous system. It doesn't matter whether it's a mental, physical, emotional, chemical stress. In this case, it's the mechanical stress of not having your spine nice and straight, but having it tilted to the side. That stress interferes with the communication process, and it doesn't matter whether you're awake or asleep. It's going to interfere with that proper conduction. So therefore, by muscle testing, we're able to determine, is that strength, the strength of the system, being maintained by you being on that pillow? If it's not, it's the wrong pillow. It's at the wrong height. So when you're laying on your back, very similar thing, but a different type of pillow. There should be a pillow with a slight wave to it. Now, some of you have seen those wave pillows. Some of you have seen those donut pillows that have the hole in the middle. Well, regardless of which one, that wave or the hump that you lay over, where you drop your head into the opening, well, that curvature is supporting the curvature in your neck. That's what's being done. Well, again, when you look at those pillows, oftentimes there's two different size curves there. Which is right, which is wrong? Which one should I use? That's why we muscle test, in order to determine which curve you should be laying on. And just remember, those 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep that you're getting a night, they're only doing one of two things. They're either building your body up so that your body is going through a healing process at night, or your body is being broken down and it's getting weaker and more broken because it's the pattern. It's the habit that you're going back to day after day after day that's training an outcome that eventually you see in what your posture looks like. And we all know that our posture is a window into our spine and our nervous system. So I think that was a great question. And I think that's a great way to start off this conversation tonight as to, what type of pillow is best to use when sleeping. We've actually had patients, just so that you're aware, that have never ever slept on a pillow. Well, oftentimes people think, well, I can't go wrong with nothing. And the answer is absolutely yes. See, the problem is whether you're laying on your side or on your back. If you're not supporting the body in the right position, it's wrong. In fact, one of the really common things that we see when people don't sleep with a pillow underneath their neck at night, or they sleep in a recliner, well, the tendency is they flatten the curve out. They totally lose the curvature, which leads to arthritis and degeneration more rapidly. And yes, it's a really comfortable position. We all get used to sleeping in different positions, and it's what we've gotten used to. So the body starts to think it's normal. Well, let me tell you, just because our body feels comfortable doesn't make it a normal position to be in. It makes it a comfortable position. And yes, we could feel very comfortable being wrong and spiraling our body downhill. That's not our desire. Our desire is to make sure that we set the body up to be in the proper position in order to make sure that it's being maintained and supported the way it's supposed to. And let me just help you out. If you're struggling with, your pillow at home, talk to us. This is one of those things we love coming alongside, helping patients figure out what is that best pillow, what's going to be that best match for you, and along with that, what's the best way of migrating into a new pillow. Because even slight changes produce a tremendous amount of change in our body. Don't forget, you're doing it 6, 7, 8 hours. So guess what? we realize that it takes time in order to get used to that new position, that new structure that's underneath you. We want to make sure that you migrate into that slowly so that your body doesn't overreact to that new position. So, the next question is, once I'm out of pain, does that mean that my problem is fixed and I'm better? Well, I would love to say yes to that. In fact, in the allopathic model, to relieve suffering, well, that's the bottom line. I'm out of pain. I'm done. That sounds great, doesn't it? In fact, many of us, and tell me if this story is different for you than me, many of us have been taught, as long as I have no pain, I've got no problem. As long as I feel good, I'm healthy. Shake it off. It'll just go away. Suck it up. You live with it long enough, your body's just going to get used to it. Those are all lies. In fact, they're the lies that I heard in my gym class. I heard from my coaches. Probably the same lies that you heard growing up. Maybe from mothers and fathers and teachers and gym teachers and what have you. Just shake it off. You're fine. Maybe it's from your general practitioner that says, hey, listen, you look great. You feel fine. Everything is okay. See, the sad thing is that, unfortunately, our level of pain has nothing to do with the function that's occurring within our body. Let me say that again. Pain is not an end-all for how healthy you are. Now, this isn't a chiropractic thing. This is not a Dr. Joe thing. So I'm going to direct you to two very simple definitions. Maybe you've heard of this book before, Webster's Dictionary. Look it up. Same with Dorland's Medical Dictionary. Both of which demonstrate that pain or a lack thereof does not show a sign of health or sickness. In fact, they even qualify the fact that you can't even use it in the world of illness or sickness, how the body is functioning. So we recognize that, you know what? Cancer patients, they have good days and bad days. You're probably like me. You have family members. You have individuals within your family that have cancers and tumors and heart disease. I have a daughter who has wisdom teeth that are coming in, and she's got good days and she's got bad days. I'm pretty sure those wisdom teeth didn't up and just simply suck all the way back to where they're supposed to be. No, that's not the case. They have to come out. And yes, the cancer patient who walks themselves out and says, I'm feeling fine. This is a really, really good day. They recognize that the tumor growing inside their head or their chest or their stomach hasn't just up and dissolved because they're pain-free one day. See, the problem is that if we forget about the root cause of why our body is not functioning properly, then shame on us. We are walking ourselves to a greater level of disaster and crisis. And hence the reason why when we start care, we make no qualms about it. As you're in different phases of spinal degeneration, it takes time in order to fix and correct and bring ourselves to an optimal level of function. In turn, regardless of the level that you're able to return to, your maintenance is something that you're going to do for the rest of your life. In fact, our maintenance level, well, quite honestly, that's determined by you and I. And it's determined by how well do you want your body to continue to function. This past week, we had to explain to patients on a number of occasions how, yes, after a subluxation is present for a week to 2 weeks, it starts to produce scar tissue, fibrous tissue on the joint capsule. That's a physiologic effect. It doesn't care whether you believe in it or not. Guess what? It's happening one way or the other. And that scar tissue, that's a mild sprain strain injury. In turn, physical therapists are even going to tell you a mild sprain strain injury, it takes 6 to 8 weeks of healing to bring the tissue back to where it's supposed to be. And maybe you've heard of stories like this before where, patients or a family member stopped doing what they're supposed to do. And yes, they were feeling fine for a while as their body was slowly degenerating, slowly going downhill, until one day I just bent over to tie my shoes. I just went to pick up a toy off the floor. I only reached in order to get a piece of paper. And those simple acts caused our body, their body, to go into crisis. See, the problem is that we have choices. And hence the reason why we lay out care plans to help people understand what it takes in order to fully fix and fully correct. And in turn, like anything else, yes, it does. It takes time. It takes frequency of care. It takes intensity of work in order to make sure that the job is done completely. And in turn, regardless of what level of achievement we get to, our maintenance is one of the most important things we're going to engage in for the rest of our lives. And I do have to say that in the end, these spinal workshops are that thing that help us to minimize the amount of maintenance that we require. I'm going to compliment you. Watching this workshop tonight, you're doing something that only 10% of the American public do. Educating themselves on better choices. There's a lot of research out there. One of the more notable research projects was done by Keeney on the leading causes of death. And very simply, the leading cause of death in the United States is poor decision making. Well, by educating ourselves and by hearing the right things again and again, guess what? The tendency is we're going to stop doing the bad things that have gotten us to the place of crisis in the beginning, and we're going to be doing those better choice things, which in the end allow us to strengthen more quickly, prevent future problems from happening, and get to live a more vibrant life with little maintenance involved. Ultimately, that's our desire. That you're not going to be dependent upon us or anybody else to experience that level of a vibrant life. So, the next question, very simply, if I don't hear or feel a pop or a crack when I get adjusted, does that mean it didn't work? Is the adjustment bad? I think this is a great question. Because you know what? We have been misled about what an adjustment is. The adjustment is taking that subluxation, the bone that's out of place, that's putting pressure on the nerve, taking that subluxation and getting the joint moving and training the body or those vertebrae back to the position that they're supposed to be. Nowhere in that conversation did you hear the word pop, crack. You use the different word that you would like to put in there. Let me tell you, it's not going to be part of the definition. See, the problem is that we have been trained by the media, by television, by movies, that it has to be there. It doesn't work if I don't hear the sound. Well, yeah, that's a lie. There are entire chiropractic techniques that have no sound made when that adjustment happens. And I think that's a wonderful thing. Because early on in my career, that's exactly the reason why we started utilizing an activator and eventually the arthrostim in our office. Because we had a young lady in our office who just could not handle having her neck adjusted by hand. She had a situation where unfortunately she had been exposed to spousal abuse, and the sad thing was that one day she finally disclosed that this was something that she couldn't continue with because of that past experience. Now the wonderful thing was we had that option, which enabled her that opportunity of having a different technique used, that she heard no sound, she felt no hands around her neck, that allowed her the opportunity of engaging in that corrective process and moving herself towards that better level of health. See, one of the great things is that we're not stuck. We're not stuck in techniques. There's over 100 different adjusting techniques. And here at the Limerick Chiropractic Center, we generally use about 8 or 9 during the course of the day. Different techniques for different individuals and different situations. If you've never heard, if you've never seen, we'd be more than happy to answer some of those questions for you. Now, the pop and the crack, well, let me tell you, those are real sounds. Those are real sounds, but they have nothing to do with the bones coming together. In fact, they really have nothing to do with the bones themselves. It has everything to do with the joint capsule. Around every joint, just like around your knee and around your shoulder, we have a big balloon, a big joint capsule, which has synovial fluid and synovial gas within it. And, well, just like a balloon, if you take it and you stretch it out really, really fast, guess what? It pops. It takes that gas that's inside the balloon and forces it into the liquid. That's the popping sound that you hear. Nothing to do with the bones themselves. So in turn, I want you to recognize that the sound means absolutely nothing to Dr. Savage and I. In the end, our hand is right on top of the vertebrae that needs to be moved. Our hand is feeling for that movement of the bone going back to where it's supposed to be. And in turn, understanding that the adjustment was made. Now, there are going to be times when we circle around, we want to double check things, and we want to make sure that exactly that things have held the way they're supposed to, which is oftentimes why we'll muscle test certain joints and certain ways after your adjustment to confirm the fact that everything is wiring and firing the way it's supposed to. So I think that's a wonderful question in regards to, was the adjustment made? Sound means absolutely nothing. In fact, as you've been in our office, from time to time, it gets a little bit noisy up front. Tables are banging, kids are screaming and playing, everybody's talking with one another. Guess what? It's a bit noisy. So in turn, Dr. Savage and I are not listening for those sounds, we're feeling for that proper motion. Now the next question, and this will be the last one for the evening, is in regards to exercise. Why do I need exercises as part of my care instead of only adjustments? Well, this is a really great question. And I think part of the question has to go back to techniques that we use in our office. We use very specific techniques, one of which happens to be a chiropractic biophysics technique. And just like a 3-legged stool, in order to create the optimal balance for your system, we use 3 very distinct processes. One, the spinal adjustment. It helps to get those joints unstuck, remove those subluxations, train the body where it's supposed to be. Number 2 happen to be those exercises. And yes, unlike going into the gym, these work the very tiny muscles around your spine, ones that have been weakened because of the poor posture that you've had, not for days or weeks, but years and decades. From there, that re-strengthens those muscles that have been weakened over time. Now, the third thing is spinal tractioning, and that's a very special process in which we're enabling the ligaments, which are that shrink wrap that's around your spine, to be stretched so that your spine is capable of assuming that new position. Can you make changes without exercises? Oh, absolutely yes. Are you going to create a system that's as strong? Oh, no. Is it going to take much longer in order to get the correction that you deserve? Absolutely yes. So, in our office, I'm going to encourage you to pause in the hallway, stop and look at the poster that describes those 3 different components of the CBP process: the spinal adjustment, the exercise, and the tractioning. In turn, by learning those things here, by mastering those things in the office, you're capable of doing them at home in order to help support and maintain the body the way it's supposed to. Our desire is to make sure that this spine of yours is brought back to a level of wholeness, a level of optimal function as quickly as possible. Hence the reason why we do reevaluations, hence the reason why we retake and look at those x-rays over time so that we can confirm that the process that you're going through is leading to that optimal outcome for you. I love the fact that we had the opportunity tonight to answer just a few questions for you. So again, as a reminder, I want you to make sure that, yes, you like this page. You like this video. Make sure that you're sharing this with your Facebook friends and family. And lastly, leave me a comment. I want to hear your questions. I'm sure that as we've answered these 4 questions tonight, as you start sitting back and thinking about it, you're going to have some additional questions. Leave them in the comment section below. If there's something that we hadn't focused on this evening that you would like to hear us respond to at a later time in another one of our videos, leave that message for me. I'm Dr. Joseph Baker from the Limerick Chiropractic Center.